the UFC being over for the year, I want to go over each champion and talk about who I think has the best chance at dethroning said champion. So let's jump right into it. At flyweight, of course, the champ is Joshua Van. Now, there's a lot of controversy around this. Some people don't think he's a real champ. Some people think what happened was, not his fault, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, Pantoja did break his arm, and Van is the current champion. Now, I would maybe say Pantoja would be his biggest threat, but Pantoja's probably going to be out for a while. And with Van's two next rumored fights either being Manel Kape or Tatsuo Taira, I have to say I think Tatsuo Taira would be his biggest challenge. Taira has great ground game, great jiu-jitsu, great submissions. We saw what he did to Brandon Moreno with the ground and pound. Manel Kape, if he fights Joshua Van, that's going to be a striking match, and we know Joshua Van is a great striker, so I wouldn't be too worried. Now, granted, Manel Kape's got power for flyweight. He definitely could beat Joshua Van, but which fight would I give Van a better chance in? The Manel Kape one. Now, Van has lost to Charles Johnson, but Charles Johnson is ranked 13th. He's probably not going to fight for a title anytime soon if he does ever, so I can't say that that's his biggest threat. Moving on to bantamweight, Peter Yan recently became the champion after beating Merab Dvalishvili. Now, is Merab the biggest chance to dethrone him? Part of me wants to say yes, considering they're probably going to be running it back almost immediately. But part of me also wants to say no. I mean, what are the chances that Peter Yan has just figured out Merab? I mean, if Peter Yan can basically, do the performance he had against Merab another time, I don't see what Merab can do to beat him. Now, some people might say Sean O'Malley has a good chance to beat Peter Yan because Sean O'Malley has already beaten him. And while I do agree that that is a winnable fight for Sean O'Malley, I think that was such a close fight, and Peter Yan typically fares better in 5-round fights. I think Peter Yan probably gets that done, so I don't think it's Sean O'Malley either. I'm going to say the biggest threat currently to Peter Yan is actually Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar is extremely well-rounded, good striker, good grappler. We saw that he fared fairly well against Merab with a broken hand and a not-so-great gas tank, so if he's been working on his gas tank and he can fight injury-free, he might present some problems for Peter Yan. Now, I do still think I'd probably pick Peter Yan to win that fight, but I think in terms of who in the top 5 that realistically is going to fight Yan soon has the best chance, it's probably Umar. Featherweight. Now we're walking into territory where there's already fights booked, obviously, as Volkanovski is going to be taking on Diego Lopez in the beginning of next year. Now, I do think Diego Lopez is a threat solely because of his punching power. We saw he dropped Volk, and I have a hard time thinking that Alexander Volkanovski is going to be able to protect his chin from Diego Lopez for 10 full rounds. And I really don't see Volk finishing Diego Lopez, so probably another decision. That being said, I do think Volk wins this fight. I think he has the style and the skills to win. He just has to protect his chin. So I'm not going to say Diego Lopez is the biggest threat. I also don't think the number 1 contender, Movsar Evloev, is the biggest threat because I think Volk has good enough wrestling to hang with Movsar. I actually think the biggest threat, shout out Zombie Man Jay, is Lerone Murphy. The reason why is Lerone is not a bad grappler. We've seen him grapple, and I think that he could hold his own against someone like Volk. But what we've seen with Lerone is he's a great striker, specifically with point fighting. I think that he could point fight Volk. He's bigger than Volk. He's longer than Volk. Pause! But regardless, I think Lerone presents probably the biggest challenge in the top 5 to someone like Alexander Volkanovski. Now, lightweight is an interesting one because Ilia Topuria is currently the champ. There is talks of him maybe having to vacate due to current legal trouble. There are also talks of him not vacating, and then, whoever wins between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett becomes interim, and then they fight Ilia. I don't think either of those guys stand a chance against Ilia, though. I'm going to be honest. The only guy in lightweight that I think presents a genuine chance to dethrone Ilia Topuria is Arman Tsarukyan. Arman is the number 1 contender, so this fight should hopefully happen soon. And if this fight does happen, I give Arman the best chance to beat Ilia. I really don't think there's anyone else in the top 15 that can present him a challenge, except for maybe Max Holloway. Max Holloway was fighting Ilia really good at 45, but obviously we know how that fight ended. I do think Max could put up a better fight against 155, but if I'm a betting man, I would still bet that Arman has a better chance. Welterweight, Islam Makhachev is the champion after beating Jack Della Maddalena. Now, this one for me is pretty simple. I think the guy with the best chance to beat him is Ian Gary, solely for his game planning, and he is great everywhere in MMA. I think that he presents the biggest challenges for Islam. I've seen some people say guys like Kamaru Usman with his wrestling, but I think Usman at this point is just too old, and I really don't want that fight to happen because Usman doesn't deserve it, so I'm not going to pick him. But I do think Ian Gary presents the biggest challenge. I think he presents a bigger challenge than Shavkat, even though some people would say Shavkat is a better fighter because he beat Ian. I think Ian is more well-rounded, and I think his game planning is so fantastic that he would present a lot of challenges for Islam. Now, do I think Ian wins? Not necessarily, but I think it would be a good fight that would be competitive. Middleweight, Khamzat Chimaev is the champion, and this is probably the hardest one to predict because based on his most recent performance, I really don't know who's going to beat this guy. If I had to pick, it would be between 3 people. It would be between Imavov, Sean Strickland, and Anthony Hernandez. I don't like Sean Strickland at all, so I'm going to remove him out of that, even though I think stylistically he would put up a better fight than someone like DDP did. But my 2 picks are going to be Imavov and Anthony Hernandez, aka Fluffy. I hope Fluffy beats Sean Strickland in their fight, and then we can maybe see this fight. However, I have a hard time thinking anyone really beats Khamzat right now, but I do think the biggest threat is probably Fluffy or Imavov. Light heavyweight, Alex Pereira. Now, obviously, he's lost to Magomed Ankalaev, but he got his get back in a first-round TKO. I don't think they're going to book this fight again, so I'm not going to consider Ankalaev a threat. Don't think I can call Yuri Prochazka a threat, as Alex has beaten him twice. Really, the only person in the top 5 that I think is a genuine threat is probably Carlos Ulberg. However, there is talks of Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight, so who knows if he'll even be the champ for much longer, but if he is, I think Carlos Ulberg presents the strongest challenge. Heavyweight, Tom Aspinall. Now, I actually think it might be Cyril Gane, and the reason why is because we haven't seen anybody really put up any sort of fight against Tom Aspinall, but in the one round that Aspinall fought Gane was fighting really well. Stuffed a couple takedowns, was pointing the jab out. Yeah, he poked him in the eye, but let's ignore that for right now. I think Cyril Gane does present Tom Aspinall the toughest challenge, and they're going to be running it back hopefully soon, so maybe we'll see a new champion. Those are my thoughts on the current champion's biggest threat to their title reign right now. Obviously, you never really know what anything's going to happen. If I had to pick who I'm most excited to see fight next, I think it's Joshua Van because, I mean, we didn't really get to see a full taste of him in a title fight, so I want to see that. I'm also very curious to see Ilya Topuria come back because obviously he's a very fantastic fighter, but he's dealing with some personal things right now, to say the least, so not really sure what's going to happen there. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. Let me know if you like this style of video. It's a little bit different than my typical video essay. But yeah, let me know who you think presents the biggest challenge for each champion. If there's one you heavily disagree with, let me know. Leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.